Hey everyone, TJ Hernandez here, and I'm the founder of RosterCoach.com, a classroom-style video-based website that's designed to help you improve your daily fantasy sports game. Today's preview is from a lesson discussing how to implement 3-player stacks in your NFL DFS lineups. If you like this video, please like and share it, and don't forget to leave a comment below.
Stacking is a great way to differentiate and still use popular plays, but in a week where Antonio Brown was the clear chalk, it can also be profitable to stack a guy like Martavis Bryant with your quarterback wide receiver stack, or even go quarterback wide receiver running back and throw a guy like D'Angelo Williams in the mix. Speaking of quarterbacks, this chart displays the amount of times a quarterback hit value, either 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, or 5 times the value of their salary on DraftKings last year. Something to think about is if you decide to pay up at quarterback, to hit 5x value, which is the target for GPPs, they have to have an absolutely monstrous week. In most cases, you're going to need 4+ passing touchdowns. So the downside of rostering a high-priced quarterback is that they're literally worthless for the most part without at least 4 touchdowns at that current salary. In order to score that many points, they're going to need more than one receiving option most likely to have a big game. So for triple stacks, a high-end quarterback makes perfect sense because you're going to need a big game regardless to make it work. So you might as well triple stack them, but that's not necessarily something you have to do with lower priced quarterbacks. What you can do for some salary relief in this case is to target a second option that's a little bit cheaper. So a stack like Ted Ginn with Cam Newton and Greg Olsen, or James Jones with Aaron Rodgers and Randall Cobb. Those would be profitable triple stacks. Speaking of Cam Newton, he was basically the only high-end option that was consistently hitting GPP value last season. But when he did, obviously, we know people want a lot of money investing in his weapons, but the triple stack is good for smaller GPPs, but on a larger scale, it's very rare that all 3 players are going to hit 5x value to put you on the podium. Unless you're playing a high volume of lineups every week and you can afford to take some more shots, this can be an extremely risky strategy for the majority of your tournament exposure. Looking at wide receivers now in the same fashion with this chart of players that hit value last year can give you a good idea of what types of players could give you a good 3-man stack. Situations like Brandon Cooks, Willie Snead, and with Drew Brees were a lot more profitable last year as far as hitting 5x value than a stack like Demaryius Thomas, Emmanuel Sanders, and Peyton Manning. And they were a lot cheaper too. So side note, unless your name was Antonio Brown, you can see how hard it is for these top-end wide receivers to hit 5x or even 4x value. It makes it absolutely crucial for you to hit on some of your lower-priced players so you can get that value. 3-player stacks may be an even bigger risk than it seems on the surface. You're essentially trying to predict 2 top options in a passing game, which is doable in some offenses, but very difficult in others. So not only the rarity of the fact that few teams are viable, there's also the variance of the third option vulturing a touchdown or 2, and that should definitely be something we consider. What if we actually do feel great about a Broncos stack of Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders one week, but then the game plan dictates a heavy flow of carries for CJ Anderson, and he's the one that scores 2 touchdowns? Or even what if a role player steps up like Cody Latimer? Somehow he gets into the end zone. So much can happen with touchdown variance in the NFL, and it's hard to predict one player, let alone 2 from the same offense going off. The next thing I want to talk about is game stacks or full team stacks. They're very similar. Team stacks obviously include one team, but a game stack includes correlation plays from the opposing team as well. Take week 13 last year when someone who had 5 Steelers in their lineup that won $1 million on DraftKings. This is a team stack as there are no Colts included. Don't try this at home. Had Ben Roethlisberger, Antonio Brown, Martavis Bryant, D'Angelo Williams, and Steelers defense in a game where Pittsburgh scored 45 points on the Colts at home. This lineup is, in theory, negatively correlated and completely upside and touchdown capped, but that's normally suboptimal. But with so many skill position players from one team, it seemed like a terrible strategy. But when you really think about it, there's hundreds of thousands of lineups in the Million Maker each week. Any given lineup is clearly a long shot to win unless it shows some sort of differentiation. With this Steelers game, they scored over 40 points, and this guy, don't try this at home, just completely cashed in. Team scoring over 40 points doesn't happen very often, so there's obviously some risk, but stacking a whole team or game and hoping for a shootout honestly gives you better odds to win than trying to guess who the top 2 options will be in a game that's a shootout, if that makes sense. Perhaps stacking the whole team or game is actually less risky if you're trying to win a large tournament than even a triple stack. Let's circle back to my study on DraftKings and FanDuel's largest GPPs quickly.